Hello, this is Jane Talbot, and today I am going to review a book, and the book is called Folked. It's written by a guy called Laurence Donaghy. It's in the fantasy genre. This is the first in a trilogy, and this book at any rate is mainly set in Belfast. The basic story is everyday Joe, called Danny, comes home from his work to find that his partner and child have disappeared, and the rest of the story is about getting them back, and there are fairies involved, and I won't put any more spoilers in. It's not the kind of book I would normally read, but I am glad I did. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Pages turning rapidly. Started it on Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock, read for 2 hours, read Saturday morning, and finished it unputdownable. The hook did take a while to come. I would say it wasn't until I reached about page 100 that I thought, aha, I am in, I'm caught, now I can't put it down. But the writing in the first 100 pages was good enough to keep me going, and reading later in the story, I understand why those 100 pages had to be put there. What Laurence does in a very clever way is give a nod and a wink to the reader here and there to let you know where he's headed, and to offer the possibility of associations which might enrich the reading experience. Now, he may have done that consciously or he may have done it unconsciously. Either way makes it brilliant. So, for example, he uses for his chapter headings stages in Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, and if you're watching this thinking, well, what's that, you do actually know what it is pretty much inside out if you're a fan of The Matrix or Star Wars or Indiana Jones, or what came to mind reading this book, Back to the Future. So Joseph Campbell wrote a book called A Hero with a Thousand Faces, and he basically distilled the great myths into one heroic journey. There's an archetype hero that goes through various stages and comes out the other side triumphant, bringing his own gift back into the world. And Danny is embarking on this journey, and Laurence uses titles which reflect the steps in the hero's journey, so you pretty much know exactly what's going to happen in that chapter. How it's going to happen and the detail, no, you know the general direction you're going to be heading in. And for me, it took a while to warm to Danny, and it wasn't until Danny goes with his friend to visit an old university lecturer, and the lecturer's called Doc, and he's talking about subwoofers and technical stuff, and suddenly what came to mind was this image of Marty and the Doc, and they might as well have been speaking about flux capacitors. And for that to happen then, it was quite a heartwarming, maybe even you could say a little bit clumsy chapter, but that was for me the point at which I warmed to Danny, and I thought, well, now I know how to see him in my mind's eye, now I know how to relate to him. In terms of characterization, I liked B. B is an old crone. She's a bit like the Oracle in The Matrix. I really warmed to her, and her description of loss was very touching. I found the relationship between Steve and Danny very heartwarming, and I enjoyed the depiction of Mr. Black and his secretary. In fact, for me, the best writing was in that part of the book where Danny's on an alternative timeline, and on this alternative timeline, Danny swears less. The swearing for me got in the way of getting close to Danny. It really did keep me away, and I know it's a personal thing, and a lot of people might read it and say, well, that's just the way he is, but it did make me keep a distance from him, and a distance from the action. I felt like I was watching the action in the audience. Whereas when the swearing is dropped, the way Laurence writes, it really reminded me of John Grisham. It was clean, it was transparent, it was fast, it was filmic, and in the office that is described, Mr. Black is a kind of, well, he's a bit like the Master from Doctor Who, or Lex Luthor, and his secretary is, oh, I don't know, the way she was described, I tell you what, I pulled the book away from me like that. Brilliant. For me, when Laurence is writing like that, the words are invisible and you're actually in the room, you are in the action, and that's where it becomes thrilling, because you're almost too close to this particular character called the secretary. When the book finished, I really did want more. I really wanted more. It really had got some momentum, and I really wished they'd put all 3 parts in one big book. So I would say the story itself, 5 stars. Really imaginative, really well conceived. Stroke of genius. The delivery, 4 stars, and the only reason I'm giving it 4 stars is because Danny swearing got in the way for me. The Belfast speak did not get in the way at all, so if you're thinking, well, I can only really understand the humour if I'm from Belfast, that is not true at all. You can hear from my accent, I'm not from Belfast, and so it really was a personal matter that I felt that if Danny had sworn less, I would have got closer to him. It felt like it almost pushed me away. So I'm going to give it overall a 4 stars, but it is genuinely a 5-star story, and I could see it as a either maybe Doctor Who kind of series, or a stylized type of comic strip or a film. It's good.